Okay. So welcome to Satsang. As you know, if you have any questions, you can just speak your question or write it in the chat box. Okay, thank you, Nanda. Okay, hello, Nanda. So
no. Let me just say this is just my little report on the contemplations that I've been having. See what you say.
Okay. So you write non-duality of the heart, an ongoing contemplation / experience. Imagine walking down the beach arm in arm, and together you are aware that there is only awareness looking out of two sets of eyes as the scenery appears and then disappears behind the perceptual field.
Just anything you might say about that, or the limitations of the way I'm seeing it, or something like that.
I think it's fine. So in the teaching, in the revelation of the understanding, so I am initially a person looking out. I am sort of behind the eyes, or I am the eyes, or I am the body. I am the person looking out. And then there is the teaching that I am not the body. I experience the body, but I am not the body. I am consciousness looking out. And then there is the understanding that I am consciousness, but I cannot look out because there is no out. There is no in and there is no out. And then there is the understanding that if there is no in and there is no out, then there is no looking. And then there is the meditation in about that, the meditation of the understanding. There is the understanding, the contemplation, hearing the teaching, the contemplation of the teaching, and then the meditation, which is resting as the understanding, resting as that transparency, that non-dual being. And so you go from I am a person perceiving to I am consciousness perceiving, that what I'm perceiving is actually zero distance myself, and therefore then you come to there is no perceiving, it's just being. But being versus what? Being versus non-being? There is being versus non-being is still mind. So then you come to the silent understanding. But it's not sufficient to come to the silent understanding. You have to come to the silent transmission of the understanding. You have to come to the understanding living itself, so to speak. So yes, the contemplation that it is consciousness looking. Okay,
your sound is breaking up quite a bit.
The contemplation that it is consciousness that is looking is a helpful contemplation.
Right.
Yes, yes. But if consciousness is looking, what is it looking at if it is the one and only reality? Yes.
Right.
So if it is the one and only reality, then we cannot really, in the true sense, speak of any looking, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
It almost seems, I'll just spit this out, it seems almost like that would be, I can this is my usual interest in that term sahaja, but it's always connected. But if it seems like that's accessible with eyes closed and a meditative space.
Well, that's
no looking,
with the
looking in one.
Right. So you can, with the eyes closed, in the meditation with the eyes closed, you can experience that oneness. Yes. But then when the eyes open, because at some point the eyes have to open, right? When the eyes open, the physical eyes open, then there is an appearance, yes?
Right.
And that appearance then what creates something else, something else apart of the stillness.
Apart from, yeah.
Okay, so then you need to bring your meditation with your eyes closed to your meditation with your eyes open. So when your eyes are open, you imagine they are closed.
I see. And they even a little step could be, it's almost like a dream, seeing a dream in that case, or being lucidly aware of awareness while the perception is there.
When your eyes are closed,
yeah,
is the thinking going on?
No thinking like that.
Okay, if the thinking is not going on with your eyes closed,
right?
Then you open your eyes. When you open your eyes, then you imagine that your eyes are closed, and you imagine that the thinking is not going on.
Right, right. And I was thinking,
so that the eyes closed meditation and the eyes open meditation is the same meditation.
Right. That's beautiful. I was
So when your eyes
pondering.
are open,
Yeah,
there is the thought, my eyes are open, or the eyes are open.
right.
So now you have to bring the transparency to that thought, shut down that thought.
I see.
In other words, discard, ignore the thought.
Hmm.
You can ignore the thought, yes?
Right.
Because the thought anyways is not going to stay there forever.
Right.
So then you go to your eyes are open, but in fact there is no knowledge of your eyes are open, because there isn't the thought my eyes are open, right? So
Are you
if
saying there's not a knowledge of the eyes being open because
right,
there isn't a thought of it?
if there isn't the thought that the eyes are open, there is no knowledge of eyes being open.
No
Because
knowledge in the sense of a separate self
no,
with
no,
that
just
idea
no, just there isn't the idea that the eyes are
of
open.
eyes open.
Right now, you don't have a thought that the eyes are open.
Right.
You don't even know that the eyes are open.
Right.
But as soon as the thought arises, which we're speaking about it right now, so the thought is arising, the eyes are open.
Hmm.
So now there is the eyes are open versus the eyes are closed.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought that arises that says the eyes are open
Hmm.
brings up the eyes are open. Otherwise, the eyes can be open
Yeah,
without any knowingness of the eyes are open. So therefore, the eyes are not open.
I see.
In other words, the eyes are open is a thought.
Hmm. Right.
Let's look at it this way. A 2 days old baby doesn't have the thought of their eyes being open or closed, because that thought isn't arising. They don't have a sense of eye. They don't know what the eyes are,
Right.
because
Right.
that hasn't been downloaded yet.
Right.
So when that download is absent, because right now, for example, it's absent. You're not thinking about your eyes being open.
Now, until you reminded me again.
Well, you started talking about the eyes open and closed. I didn't really. Right, I know what you mean. Yes, I did. So, but anyways, it's a little. It's not so black and white. You see, this whole thing about the eyes closed and the eyes open.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thought comes and says, "Oh, well, when the eyes are open, blah blah blah. When the eyes are closed, blah blah blah." And because we believe thought, then we are experiencing the content of thought. Because the content of thought is speaking about you, about your meditation. And thought has no freaking idea about your meditation. Oh, what does thought know about your meditation?
Right. This pointing is what I'm hearing is it's really pointing beyond thought altogether. So that it's wild because I've considered that thought goes on, but so what? Kind of like that. But you're talking about a real clarity about it.
The key thing is to understand that thought has no knowingness. So when you're using thought to describe your meditation, in other words, you're having thought sort of
Hmm.
speaking about your meditation
Right.
when your eyes are closed, when your eyes are open. And this whole conversation is a fictitious conversation, because first of all, thought has no idea about you. But you, meaning you as consciousness, you're now saying, yeah, okay, you know, thought knows something about me and knows something about my meditation. And so you have basically foregone the self. You have foregone the
Mm,
reality of consciousness in favor of whatever thought says you are and whatever thought says you are doing.
right. Like commentary on meditation.
Yeah, right.
Commentary.
And it's about you, a commentary about you, so-called you. Supposedly thought has some knowingness of you. Thought has
Mm,
no knowingness of you whatsoever.
mm,
Thought has no knowingness. It's completely unknowing. Like
mm.
these glasses have no knowingness to them. There isn't any knowingness within thought. Zero. I mean, not 1%. You see.
So what is it that what's going on when two people are talking? Like you said, it's not black and white. So like in a satsang mode, it's particularly paradoxical seeming to me.
You see, when you step out of the silence, you step out of the stillness, you step out of truth, you step out of the reality of being.
Mm-hmm.
There are people talking.
Mm. Mm.
So, but in fact, it is fictitious because you never step out of being. In fact, you never step out. But although it is a fact that we never are anything else but the self, we're never anything else but the self. Although that is an absolute fact, this does not mean that ignorance is absent. Although it's an absolute fact that the sky is colorless, this does not mean that when we look up at the sky, we do not see blue. Because the instrument, the visual instrument, colors the colorless in blue. But in fact, there is no blue sky. Right? So you ask, well, what happens when we see a blue sky? Nothing. Nothing happens when you see a blue sky. What? Nothing. So when you're having conversation with somebody, when two people are having conversation, you are experiencing, it depends, but I would say that most likely you are experiencing yourself as a series of thoughts, images, and feelings. And you are, I guess, to a certain extent, enjoying the play, the dream. You're being playful, except it is a fact that it's an unhappy dream because you believe yourself to be the character that you are perceiving. And because you believe yourself to be a character, not just an absolute character, but a relative character in time and space that is born and about to die in 30, 40, 50, 100 years. You're experiencing the angst of mortality and the concern about the body-mind because you're identified with it. That's what's happening. It's just the wheel of samsara is happening. And whenever you contemplate, what am I truly? What is the reality of being? What is it that is absolute? What is it that absolutely real, absolute? What is it that is absolute? Whenever you are contemplating the absolute, you are no longer in a conversation with somebody.
Even if we are speaking.
Yes, the body can do it. Doesn't matter what the body is doing. When you are contemplating, what am I truly? You could be chewing on some lettuce or a carrot and contemplating, what am I truly? You are no longer having conversation, or you're no longer a body-mind. So the contemplation of truth is absolutely essential. First, you have to understand the teaching. Then you have to reflect upon the teaching, like you are doing now. Then you have to meditate upon the teaching. To keep returning to the source, the transparency of being, that is the absolute isness of being, and not the mind downstream about me and you and having conversation or not having conversation. Because who is having a conversation right now? Who is having a conversation? I'm not saying there is nobody, but you tell me, who is having conversation?
I wouldn't say nobody. I almost was going to say you, as you're representing consciousness.
Okay, let's say that I am having conversation. So I start with that. I say, okay, fine, I'm having conversation. So I'm going to look at that, because I'm having conversation is a thought that is arising to me.
Right.
So I'm going to take a look at that, because if the thought I am having a conversation, if the thought I am having a conversation does not arise to me, I would not be saying, I would not be sharing with you, I am having a conversation. So the arising of the thought is what I'm sharing with you. I am having conversation. So I perceive a thought that says I'm having conversation. Yes?
Right.
Okay, so then I look at that. I say, okay, there are many ways of looking at it. I could say, go directly to what is this I? First, is if the I is contained in the thought, because the thought arose saying, I am having conversation. If the thought is located in if the I is located in the thought, and then I am perceiving the thought. So the I that is contained in the thought is not the real I, because I am perceiving this I. I cannot be perceiving the I. So the I that is contained in thought is not I. It's not really I. It's not. I don't know what it is, but it's not the real I, right? Already, I could look at that and say, "Oh, wait a minute." The thought says I'm having conversation, but I am looking at this thought, and right here, the I that is perceiving the thought is not having conversation. The I that is in the thought is having conversation. That's what the thought said. Interesting. It's just an interesting, contemplation.
Yeah,
Looking at it, right?
a posited I, imagined I within the thought structure within the conversation. So I was just thinking, what is conversation? All the conceptuality of the conversation. I'm just wondering now with something called higher reason. When it said that.
Higher reasoning, yes.
Yeah, that it's actually part of the conversation somehow.
Well, let's say that reasoning is a capacity. It's a gift from God. It's a capacity given in this waking dream to discern, capacity to discern, to perceive with clarity, to perceive beyond the mind. The reasoning is beyond the mind. It pierces through. It perceives. It makes the discernment that the mind does not make.
Right.
And so in the teaching, there is the invitation to reason, to utilize the faculty of reasoning, so that we get to clarity. For example, it stands to reason that the I that arises in thought, that is perceived, cannot be the true perceiver, because what is perceived but does not perceive. That stands to reason. You cannot argue against that. You just have to sort of get it or not. Hopefully you get it. But yes, I perceive, but that is perceived does not perceive.
Sometimes when I listen to your talk again, watch it, listen to it again, your voice is clear. Whereas when I'm listening to you now, sometimes some words get lost, like.
Okay.
But it's just funny because you're making such a subtle point. Suddenly,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, it could be this very basic way of.
But sometimes it does come. Sometimes when I listen to the YouTube later, you sound clear. So who knows? It's hard to say where the problem is. But
We have to be thankful to YouTube.
there's one other part of my. I don't want to take. Let me see. I don't want to monopolize time, but you really addressed the second part of my question, and the first. I mean, my little post statement. But the first part was a contemplation of the heart, like two people sharing the heart, as if the heart being the same as the self. And I just wondered if there was a similar taking that further than the way
Yes.
I.
Yes. When you are with a friend who loves the truth as you do,
Mm-hmm.
and who lives this love, who keeps returning and inviting
Mm-hmm.
and recollecting this contemplation, the contemplation of truth,
Mm-hmm.
you could say that it is first, it is a very lovely gift from consciousness to also be in a relationship where you are also invited to contemplate the self.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the true love. The true love is love of truth. What else would be, what else could true love be if it is not love of truth?
Right. If truth is left out.
Yes, then what is it that we are loving?
Right.
It has to be a love of truth to be true love.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say that, in this coming together in the love for truth, the two are one, really, because there is hopefully an ongoing invitation, or a frequent invitation, to live, to contemplate and live the truth, the recollection of the transparency that what I truly am is not what thought downloads. What I truly am is not what I perceive, and what you truly are is not what I perceive. That you are that I am, the universal, transparent reality, clarity, invisible self. And this waking dream is an opportunity for us to awaken from the dream. And not just to live the dream. Because the dream is so temporary. And so you really have to take the best advantage of it, to live it, to the fullest capacity in the contemplation of the self. And of course, it's very lovely if you do that across the board, including in your relationships. Of course, absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, Ananda. Hello, Javi. Javi, I don't see online. Maybe you got off, but you're right. I will leave because I think there was someone in this chat who had to leave chat because of lost connection, and I took his or her place. I will be back in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, very well. Don't worry so much about leaving or coming to, if you're on your own. Yeah, this format, I think, is limited to 10 people, so that's how it is for now. I still haven't looked at the Zoom format, but we may be doing so soon, I don't know. Which allows a larger group of people to be online, live, in a live format.
Hi, Magdi.
Yes, hello, Anne.
Hi there. Yeah, you sort of made the title of your chat about thoughts and sensations being fruitless.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's kind of my theme this week, that like my priority, the priority of my life is to awaken to the truth. And I'm very fortunate to have a lot of time to focus on being. But I find it difficult, given that the priority of my life is to awaken. Whenever I can, I come back to what is the reality of my experience that takes me into being and the nothingness. But what I can't understand is how easily I'm distracted by thought. And they're not always important thoughts. They're sometimes completely petty. And just stay in that beingness, stay in that nothingness. I think that was the very sort of sticky thoughts, and I just wondered. And also, I think, is it my desire to control my environment? You know, that I might, if I don't sort of listen to the thoughts, that I'm not controlling something, but I don't know. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that.
It's not very helpful to be judging oneself, of course, judging others as well, but in terms of to be judging oneself in any situation, of course, in the situation that we are talking about, in terms of being as presence or being identified in the realm of thoughts and feelings, it's really important not to add to that a judgment. Yes?
Yes.
Because then you're moving it to a deeper level of identification. So there may be some thoughts that arise about me, the world, my past, my future, my this, my that. And for within this arising of the thought, there is the belief that, okay, yes, that's what's happening. That's what I am. I am what thought says I am. The reality of my experience is what thought says I am, or thought says it is. And at that moment, there isn't really much to do when the identification, there is a blind spot to the identification. Then you are believing the thought and you are feeling the emotions. But what matters is that at some point or the other, which I'm sure is the case, you sort of realize that you were in some sort of whirlpool of thoughts and feelings. And at that moment, there is available to you the understanding that in fact, nothing has happened to you.
Mm.
That in fact, nothing has happened, period. That there was just a weather element that has unfolded.
Mm.
And that there is really nothing that has really in fact happened. And not to desire, put it another way, when you desire for the thoughts and the weather element not to arise, you are in actuality keeping the weather going on even when it's gone.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yes.
Mm.
Rather than doing that and giving importance to the weather by taking a stand about it or against it, or for it, if it's something sweet, desirable. Rather than taking this sort of stand about the weather, be completely dispassionate about the weather. This does not mean I want to be weather-free. I want to be thought and feeling free. But I am dispassionate about it. It does not matter to me if the world is on fire, if there is chaos in my life, if work is going to pot, if the relationship is going. There is a certain dispassion about this. Of course, I am not inviting you to completely neglect your life, meaning if the sink faucet is broken and there is a leak that's occurring in the kitchen, to sort of be dispassionate about that. I am talking about the psychological element.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm learning that
Yes.
the more I fight thought,
yes,
the more it takes hold.
Absolutely.
And then it's like a stepping back from it.
Yes, when you are fighting thought, you are feeding the separate self. You're feeding that gives you the sense of separation and unhappiness. But in fact, in the past, some people used to say some teeny tiny negative thing about me. I used to get so upset. Now they say such a big negative thing about me, I don't get upset. It's rich.
Nice.
I say you are blah blah. I say, oh, interesting. Interesting. It's possible. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I see that. I've got a lot better. I'm not at that point you are. not nearly that.
I'm just speaking. That that it becomes less and less significant, the thoughts and the feelings.
Yeah.
Our interest in them is not. I don't know why we put so much interest about the body and the mind. It's misplaced interest.
Yeah.
Our
Totally.
interest is better placed in awareness, consciousness, the reality of being, the transparency of being.
Mm.
You put your interest there, and don't worry about everything else. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's the weather. Don't worry about it. It will, in time. And I'm not saying, you know, please expect that. I'm not saying that, but it will in time. You won't even notice the weather anymore. There
Yeah.
won't be weather anymore, because it's all about the separate self. And the separate self is just you're resisting, you're wanting something else, or you're desiring something that is not.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I do have much less thought than I used to.
Just it's about keep returning to that does not arise, that does not come and go, that is not subject to any conditions, that is not subject to the body, to the mind, that is not subject to thoughts, that is not subject to any situation. That is what you need to be coming back to, and it is the reality of being.
Yeah, I do try and stay with that as long as I can, as much as I can. Sometimes it's just easier than others to be.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. But sometimes it's easier than others. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine.
Good. Can I ask you one more question,
Just
please?
relax about it. Yes, of course.
So there are some people there seems to be a lot of people waking up, as it were, and some people, they don't seem to have done much practice and meditation, and but what happens is that the separate self just one day completely collapses. This is how they describe it. Like they'll wake up and it's gone. Have you come across that?
Well, I can share with you in my experience. My experience was of the separate self collapsing and was gone in 1974. And then after that, there were 30, 40 years, I don't know how many years, whatever, of, let's say, let me put it this way, that in my experience, it was the beginning of the path and not the end of it. Yes?
Yes, yes.
It was the beginning of the path. And of course, for 2 or 3 years, I thought that this was it. This was it. This was it. I didn't even know what it was, but somehow it was it, because it sort of appeared, and I cannot explain it to you. And then there was life. There was all sorts of things happening. There was work and family, and marriage, kids, and money, and concerns, and brothers, and blah, 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 the politics, the this and that. So it was the beginning of the journey. So the beginning of the journey is an insight into the self. So awakening, or let me put it this way. I use the term enlightenment as your initial glimpse into the self. So there are various degrees of glimpse into the self. Glimpse into the self meaning a glimpse that the personal self is just a dream illusion. and that there is a reality there is a wordless reality that is majestic, which we refer to as the self, and in religious terms as God.
Yes.
That's the glimpse into self, and it varies at different degrees of glimpses into self. I'm not going to go much into it right now, but just to say that there are glimpses, and upon the glimpse of the self, depending on how bright that glimpse is, you're on the path, and you have an opportunity to come to the full revelation of the self.
Yeah.
So there is such a thing as a full revelation of the self. And there is a journey, the path to the full revelation of the self. And depending on grace, of course, and depending on the glimpses that you have and the great fortune that you have in your life, you can travel a long way within one lifetime. But it's not very common, let's say.
Yes, yeah.
There are many rest areas.
Yes.
Along the journey, and there are many folks who build their house in the rest area, and they live there.
Yeah, I've heard that said before. Yeah. Yes.
So was that your question? Did I address your question?
Yes, you did. Can I ask you,
Yes.
when you said that initial awakening of yours, so when these people that I've heard talk, they say that the change, the shift, is from them being a person and thinking they're a person in time and space,
yes,
to just waking up and
yes,
this is it. It's just
no,
everything is happening.
No, it's not it. No.
And
no, this is not it, because
when I said that this is it, I'm saying they're just, instead of being a person in time, they're here in this moment, and they're not a person anymore. The person's disappeared, and everything is just life happening. That's how they describe it. It's just life happening. And do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Or you're laughing. I can see you wanting to laugh. I mean, they do seem very clear about it.
I don't know what life is, so whoever knows what life is, that's good. That's good for them. I don't know. Life happening. I don't know. Maybe life is happening. I don't know what life is happening. I don't have such thoughts about life happening, but maybe life is happening. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have such thoughts about life happening or not happening. I don't know what that is actually. I don't know. But coming back, to...
But they say that a lot. They say, I don't really know what's going on. It's just events are happening rather than them having control in the events.
I'm sorry, I cannot speak about other people's teachings. I can just tell you that I don't have such experience of events happening. But maybe there are teachings about events happening. I don't know. It's possible. I would say, put it this way, that when the mind dissolves in the heart, when the mind dissolves in the self, the world, body, mind return to the self. They're the self's dreams. They come. The self awakens. When you awaken, you're no longer dreaming. Yes.
Yes.
No longer dreaming. So events are still in the dream realm. Again, I'm sharing with you my experience. Of course, I'm not speaking about other people's experience.
No, that's good. That's good.
So when you wake up, you're no longer dreaming. There are no events or life or anything like that. So there is still a relative, from my perspective, there is still a relative realm that is not fully revealed. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And do you feel things then? Do you still
Do I feel things?
when you're not the body mind? Do you still feel?
What do you mean by that? I mean, what would that be?
Do you feel pain?
Let's say that when there is a injury to the body, let's say that I knock my knee against my toe against the corner of the table.
Yes.
There is a whatever
Sensation.
You want to call it, sensation, pain. My toe is hurting. You can. It doesn't matter really how you say it.
Yeah.
But the mind is not moved. You see, the mind is not arisen. Doesn't arise.
Right.
So, for example, when I look out, now it's daylight. It's nighttime where you are. So when you look out, it's daytime. The mind is not moved. Or if it's nighttime, the mind is not moved. So it's not so much about whether there is hunger or thirst, whether the body is now limping, or whether the body now is cancerous and is requiring morphine, etc. It's not about that. That can go on for the body mind, as long as the body mind still has to proceed in this dream. It's not about that. It is not about that.
Yes.
It's about peace and undisturbed and undisturbable peace, bliss, freedom, wisdom, happiness, joy, that is completely causeless and is unshakable. Unshakable. Yes?
Yes. So pain or illness doesn't shake your peace and blissful state. Wow.
Well, we all know that this is inevitable for the body mind, but we don't want it. We don't want it.
No, we don't.
We don't want it, right? We don't want it. So that is actually the separate self. So the separate self is this arising of an imaginary character that wants something or doesn't want something else.
Yes.
And so you need to keep returning to the reality of your experience, the transparency of being.
Yes.
The invisible, infinite invisible self. You have to keep coming back to the noumenal, the non-phenomenal reality of being.
Yes.
Initially, there is that going back to the self, to the noumenal. But in time, the phenomenal will dissolve in the noumenal. And then there will be no more a returning to, because there is no going or returning. But for now, you need to return to that is not phenomenal, that is not perceived, that is not objective, the non-object. There is the reality of the non-objective reality of being.
Mm-hmm.
Keep returning to the non-objective reality of being.
Yes.
And when you are thinking about this person and that person and this or that, you need to be watchful that thought is creating a separate me and a separate other. You see, a me and another.
Right.
In fact, in being together right now, there is no me and there is no you. It is a recollection of that is the oneness, the wholeness of being.
Right.
You are right now experiencing your very self. You experience your very self, and it's just a reminder that you're always experiencing your very self. You're never experiencing any other. You're never experiencing anything.
Yes.
You're only experiencing the self.
Okay.
You are the self. All is the self. You're never experiencing anything outside of your very self.
Wow.
Yes?
Yeah. Yes. That's great. Yes.
Okay.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you, Magdi.
Okay, Anne. Okay, nice talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, Shiva. So, Shiva, you're right. Dear Magdi, this is what the Ashtavakra says. Total dispassion. Yes. Yes. This is really, it's here these days. The seeing and sensing how quickly mind wants to come into label, to judge, to reject, and to desire. Yes, that's always the me tendency arises and perceives an external desirable, or non-desirable. So it is desiring, rejecting. That's the arising. That is Maya. It is so much bollocks and the very hallmark of the ego. Love and God are all there is, yes, inside, outside, and we have to be very active in the detection of all these subtle wantings or not wantings. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Shiva. Yes, absolutely. The discrimination, the discernment is very important, Shiva, as you are saying. To discern, to perceive the arising, the false, the I want this and I don't want that. That's good. Let me go after it. That is bad. Let me resist it. Is an important aspect of the teaching, which is the viveka, the discrimination, the discernment. If we do not discern, then we are led by the I thought. We are feeling what thought says we are feeling. We actually are experiencing our life via the lenses of thoughts and feelings. And the dispassion, if you do not practice this passion, the vasanas that pull you, the energies that pull you, things about money, about sex, about love, about being desired, about being having a positive image, having a healthy body, the vasanas that are operating will keep pulling you. So you have to be completely dispassionate about the world, about the body, and about the mind. Being dispassionate does not mean that you don't tend to the world. If you need to put fuel in your car, you put fuel in your car in a dispassionate way. If you take care of your body, feeding the body, resting the body, whatever, you do so, but that's not where your passion is. You keep your passion for the transparency of being. You remain passionate about truth. Keep returning to truth, absolute truth, not the truth that yes versus no, more versus less, not the truth that the mind has the false and the true. No, absolute truth there is no false. It's just truth. There is no false. How could there be any falsehood in truth? It makes no sense. There is the false is just, it's a thought. There are mentations. So the concept of truth is not the actual truth. Okay?
Magdi?
Yes. Hello, Esther.
Hello.
Hello, Esther.
One thing I've been noticing lately is how subtle, it's almost like thoughts in the mind take on a pseudo awareness that it pretends that's it's in abidance. You know, it can almost mimic the peace and quality of that. But then something will feel just a little bit off. And so when I inquire, everything shifts. It's like there's almost like, especially in day-to-day living in the marketplace and going about, you know, doing things, there is this very, it's like catching the mind mimicking the truth. It pretends or something, but it's not quite right. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Sometimes it's very subtle, but then when I inquire, it exposes it.
So the mind, meaning thought, is not privy to truth. The body-mind is not privy to truth. You are not privy to truth. Only truth is privy to truth. There is no mind in truth. This is why it is said it's not an experience. Because in the experience there is still an experiencer. And there is the impression of time and space. What can be described is not it. What cannot be described is also not it. What is beyond what can be described and cannot be described is also not it. What does that leave? The you that you are speaking of cannot be spoken of. the you that you feel, has nothing to do with truth. It's more a process of shedding, of letting go. Letting go, letting go, letting go. But without expectation, you see. Because then you're not really letting go. It's a partial letting go. It's just let go of all the expectation. Let go of the letter go, the one that is letting go. We let go that so-called character. So only the truth remains, but what would be there to know it? What would be there to know the truth? Only the truth remains if you let go of anything, of everything that is not truth. Only truth remains. So could we say that then the truth will know itself? How could the truth know itself if it is itself? So there isn't even a knowing of the truth. The truth is, what would know it? So it's more like the infinite sky is obstructed by the clouds. But in fact, the sky is not obstructed. How could the infinite sky be obstructed? It's not obstructed. So we say, well, the clouds are the obstruction, the veil. But in fact, there is no other reality outside of the infinite sky. There's only one reality. There isn't your reality, my reality, and the reality of truth. There's only one truth, only one reality. So what is it that is being veiled? If there is only one reality, what is the veil? What veil? There has to be somebody that is experiencing a veil of truth. So then there is truth and there is somebody, and that somebody is experiencing a veil. But if I am experiencing a veil, if in fact I am, then there must be some reality to the veil and some reality to me. And of course, some reality to truth. So now there are so many realities. This is why we say separation is illusion, ignorance is illusion, and yet it's not enough to walk around and say, oh yeah, separation is illusion, separation, there's nothing to attain, there's all there is just what is, there is just what is, you know. You cannot fake the peace and happiness of the self. So allow each moment its complete full death. Die completely to every moment as every moment. Surrender completely your entire body, mind, being, vibrational field into the vastness of being. Remain in your contemplation, turning your attention to the invisible, infinite reality of consciousness. That I am. Not Esther, not a person, not in the market, not the body mind. Keep returning to that, keep returning to that. Don't worry so much about the thoughts, the feelings, and the sensations. Truth is, there is no way to experience it. You can only die into it. You are it. And this death into it is the illusory death of the illusory self. There is no real death. There is no real birth. How could the real die? How could the real be born? Out of what? It's a beautiful koan, this entire experience, so-called. This human life, what we call the human life. It's a fascinating koan. Dive deeply into it, into the koan. What is it that is absolute? I am. I what? What I? I amness. Amness. What's amness? Amness. Go to amness. Be amness. Presence, amness, absence, beingness. They all merge into one. And the mind dissolves, expands. The thoughts that keep returning you to the objective world and the material realm, you have to discard them. So you can remain as you are. This is what this waking dream about, you know. It's about coming to that silent understanding. I haven't found anything else.
Me neither, Magdi. Thank you.
Okay, Esther. And thank you for your lovely gift. It's very beautiful.
My joy.
Ours too.
Thank you, Esther, for asking those questions. That was so beautiful, Marty. This is Lina.
Yes, hello, Lina.
I was glad to see Esther. I hadn't seen her since she was at your house.
Yes.
It's perfect. Perfect. It so much fell away in just listening to that and sharing how to inquire. That's what I got.
It's beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was an incredible journey. We're so lucky.
Yes. Yes, we're very, very, very fortunate to be together. It's very beautiful.
It all kind of just weaves in together so perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I hear you.
My machine is old. I need another machine, but it's not working very well.
Actually, now I'm not hearing you very clearly.
See what I mean? I'll say goodbye. I just wanted to say
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Nice to see you, Lina.
enjoy. I'm so
Yes.
glad I'm here. I'll be home soon.
Okay. You are still in
Colorado.
Colorado. Yes, yes. Okay.
That's at home.
Okay. Lovely. Okay. 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 Yes, Ananda, you're right. Surrender your entire body-mind vibrational field into the infinity of being.
The picture.
This sounds like the
I
place.
don't know if you're talking or responding.
I was just reading what you wrote, Ananda. This sounds. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, I'm not sure if Ananda hears me. But reading what you wrote, this sounds like the place where separate hearts are resolved into one heart. Okay. Yes. 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 That's yes. It is the place where separate hearts are resolved into one heart. Yes. Yes. That sounds good. Any questions? Oh, you said I'm not coming through. You cannot hear me, Ananda? Oh, wait a minute. Because
Can
sometimes.
you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Do you hear me back?
Yes.
Your voice, it's one of those, or like that. It's broken up. And your picture is slow motion as well.
Is anybody else experiencing that? No. Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
It could be. Our somehow our particular connection. Ananda.
I have good Wi-Fi here, but who knows why.
Okay.
Did you answer? Did you respond to my? Now I'm hearing you.
Oh no, I said that sounds good, because you said this sounds like the place where separate hearts are resolved into one heart. Yes. Okay. Yes,
okay.
That's true. Although of course there are no separate hearts, but that's it sounds good. Yes.
That's it. So that and that's really what the reason I put that question is because I'm aware of this conceptual overlay that still says, okay, here's the reality, but nice how it resolves all these things, and still these things are taken as some kind of as some kind of having some kind of reality that needs to be resolved into the whatever one heart.
Well, I mean, we could say that from the absolute perspective, all is well.
Mm.
The self is the self. There is just the self. There is only the reality of the self.
Mm-hmm.
And all our sufferings are just mind impressions. So we could say that from the absolute perspective, but yet from the relative perspective, there is a journey from ignorance, from the dream, from being the dream character, being identified as the body mind, as a woman, as a man, as a person.
Mm-hmm.
In the wheel of samsara, I mean, in the relative realm, that is also our experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a journey from unhappiness to happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, of course, the numerous hearts as separate
Mm-hmm.
selves
Mm-hmm.
recognize.
Mm-hmm.
There is recognition as the one self
Mm-hmm.
is the path.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you could say, okay, well, it is all dream, it is all illusion,
Mm-hmm.
and yet it is also the journey. It's our journey until we realize that there was never any journey. But you cannot simply say there is no journey and or come to some conceptual understanding that all is the self and there is no journey while you are still unhappy. There is still a journey. As long as there is still a world and there is still a body and a mind, there is still an arising, then the journey is still a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yet what you wrote, surrender your entire body, mind, vibrational field into the
which is a quote from you about 10 minutes ago.
Yes, and you said this sounds like the place where separate hearts are resolved into one heart. Yes,
Oh.
and the surrender, and when we come together and we just are together, it's just the freedom of being. It's very beautiful, right? I mean, we all love that.
Yeah, I guess what I liked, the reason I connected what you said, this quote to the issue of seeing through the separateness was because it sounds like it's beautifully philosophical, but it also connotes the vibrational yoga of letting go.
Yes.
Like this.
Yes. So it's to first we come to an understanding, the understanding about the Dharma, the understanding that I am consciousness, that there is no separate self. You come to this understanding, and then that's so the belief in being a separate self doesn't have much legs to stand on, but yet we're still unhappy. We're still affected by life, by things, by events, by the thoughts that arise. That we still the hypnotism is not fully complete. The hypnotization is not fully occurred. So there is still the body-mind structure at the feeling level, which is huge. And so to surrender that meaning to turn one's attention to the borderless, beingness presence of awareness, the spaciousness of awareness. Because everything arises in the spaciousness of awareness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a spaciousness of awareness, and perceptions, thoughts, sensations arise in that spaciousness.
Right.
Right? So we invite whatever arises into that spaciousness, and that spaciousness is cosmic. It's multidimensional, meaning it's infinitesimal dimensional. It's infinite dimensional. It's like an infinite sphere, or a sphere with infinite diameter with no center. It's that sort of spaciousness of awareness. So at the feeling level, it's really important to invite all what's arising into that vastness.
Right. Beautiful. I was thinking infinite dimensional or dimensionless. I'm not sure we said dimensional or dimensionless, where the universes are like bubbles, like little sparkles. Did you say infinite dimensions, like, or did you say dimensionless?
Well, it's actually infinite dimensions is dimensionlessness.
Emptiness containing all emptiness in which it all or whatever.
I like the metaphor of a sphere that has infinite diameter and no center, as a sort of
no center
of that consciousness, the spaciousness of consciousness. And everything that's arising arises as cosmic vibrations that the mind interprets, boxes it has, those machines, they stamp, the thing. Now you have an object. Right. It becomes a bottle of soap. Yes.
Right.
So there is that the overlay of the objectifying the objectless, molding it,
right,
and that process, that molding, as the eye swing, the eye thought that's constantly swinging. But in fact, it's all it's a metaphor. In fact, whatever is arising is objectless. The thought, the sensation, the perception, they're objectless, right?
Yeah.
They're objectless, and the spaciousness of consciousness is objectless. So it's sort of a recognition, much more than an invitation. It's a recognition. Maybe we can do an invitation, not a problem, but it's a recognition of the objectless, infinite objectlessness of consciousness and of everything that arises in it. So we invite everything that arises. We invite our belly, we invite our breath, we invite the vibrations within our body, we invite the kinetic fields, all what's flowing into the spaciousness. In fact, we invite it in the spaciousness is a way of speaking. In fact, it in itself is formless. It in itself, all these vibrational fields are in their very fact, they are objectless. There are no objects, in fact. There are no objects. Of course, thought says there are objects, but the thought itself is objectless. So the impression of an object in itself, it's objectless. And thought itself, the reality of thought is silence, is consciousness.
I caught just a few words, but I did catch, because again it messed up, but I heard that the reality of thoughts is silence.
Yes.
And that seemed to capsulize the thing. Wow, this has been so beautiful. This whole thing is beautiful.
Okay, Ananda.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Ananda.
And yeah, thanks.
Okay. Hello, Steve. Steve, you're right. Is there something as purification? God is an infinite circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Nicolas de Cusa. Oh, thank you for writing this quote. I didn't know Nicolas of Cusa. God is an infinite circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Beautiful. Tara, if you could like write this down, I really like this quote. Nicolas de Cusa. Okay, thank you. So your question, Steve, is there something as purification? Yes, there is. Of course, we're speaking, Steve, here we're speaking in the relative realm. For example, when we are trying to purify a gold ingot, and that has a lot of other elements in it, there is a whole process of purifying the ore to bring it to 90%, 95%, 99% purity. So in the relative sense, yes, there is a purification. The same thing with, for example, the lenses of cameras and the Hubble telescopes. The purity of the lens and the lining of the lens has to have a certain purity in order for the instrument to deliver its function, at the highest efficiency. But that applies to the mind, that there are purification practices, methods that help the mind to be more ready to surrender to truth, to surrender to God, to dissolve in the self. So the mind is very polluted. Okay, it's polluted via the senses and via the mental thoughts and beliefs and concepts and structures, mental structures, country, nation, religion, you name it, family, father, mother, and man, woman. It is the entire conceptual realm, and of course the sensual realm that compose the ignorance as a result of the I thought, the I am this person, I am this body, mind, and as a result of that, you have a very impure mind. Yes, there are purification practices. And the best way to come to the purification practices is, of course, out of love for truth. You have a glimpse into the self. You perceive that there is a reality that is absolute, and that the entire good versus bad mental realm was just complete delusion. So there is an insight that you cannot negotiate. And as a result of that, you find yourself interested in truth, and at some point, a truth lover, loving the truth, meaning living for the revelation of the truth, living for the truth, living as the truth. And you become the living truth in a way. At some point, one moment or the other, you become the living truth. So the purification, if it's inspired by your love for truth, it's very lovely. Sooner or later, you have to do some purification. All of us suffer from various vasanas, tendencies that we have to towards certain emotions about our health, about our wealth, about our sexual tendencies, about our image. And sooner or later, we have to take a stand about these things. They will not completely dissolve of their own if you do not take a stand. When you take a stand, in that very stand that you take, I refer to that as purification. This is very, very powerful position to take, where you actually do decide to live not a prey of a particular vasana that you have noticed in your life. For example, if you've noticed that maybe more for male than for females, and you notice that wherever you go, your eyes are constantly going right and left, and it's triggering the certain vasana within you, and you take a certain stand about that. So, well, that's, you realize that by focusing your eyes on attractive objects, that you, at that moment, you are giving a reality and importance to the unreal, because what is real has no form or shape. What is real is consciousness, and you decide to stay with consciousness, to stay as consciousness, to live as consciousness. When you notice this vasana, then you do something about it. You don't wait for it to do something on itself, on its own. You do something about it. So you are helping yourself to abide as the self, to live as the self. So you take a certain stand, and you do whatever you need to do in order not to feed that beast. Now, whenever you are contemplating the self, is an act of purification. Whenever you are contemplating, what am I truly? What is the reality of my experience? It is an act of purification. I do not encourage or discourage other acts of purifications, such as prostrations, such as I don't know, what would be some acts of purifications? There's maybe some maybe volunteer work, or some other, whatever you consider as acts of purification. I don't encourage them or discourage them, But I just give a warning that whenever you are doing an act of purification for your personal self, in order to purify yourself, you are 100 times better off contemplating what am I truly, what is the reality of my experience, rather than doing any acts of purification. Now, having said that, if you have a strong calling to do acts of purification, I remember way back, in the 70s or so, or 80s, there are these people who did a pilgrimage, I don't know, 1,000-mile pilgrimage, where they would take 2 steps and then they would do a full prostration, 2 steps and full prostration, 2 steps and full prostration. And it was very interesting because they had special gloves and special knee pads, because they did so many prostrations that they had to protect the palms of their hands and their knees. It was an act of purification, one could say. And they were drawn to do that. It's very beautiful. If they're drawn to do that, then they do that. But the highest act of purification is the contemplation of truth, contemplation of consciousness. And of course, coming to satsang and contemplating the teaching together is very helpful in that regard. So Steve, thank you for your question, and really thank you for that quote. It's the quote is, "God is an infinite circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere." And it's by Nicholas de Nicholas, Nicholas of Cusa, C-U-S-A. Yes, thank you, Steve. Whose center is everywhere, and whose circumference is nowhere. So, any questions? The pilgrimages are people who do pilgrimages as acts of purification. And of course, they do also pilgrimages too, so that God can help their children or their grandmother or something like that.
Maggie?
Yes, Esther.
We almost made a pilgrimage to Mount Shasta. Almost.
Yes. I understand that there's still quite a bit of smoke in Mount Shasta area. Yeah. So, anyways, it was meant to be this way.
I just got a confirmation that we get our deposit back, which is great.
That's wonderful.
I'll be sending everybody their money back.
That's very kind of and correct. If you do talk to her, express to her recognition of this act of wisdom and fairness.
It just took her. It just took her as a business person a little while to realize that was the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Our buttons get pushed just the right way, just the right way. What is your sore spot? Is that? That's exactly what you're going to get that push. So get ahead of the game.
Oh, someone that I was chatting with elsewhere said something about just call its bluff. Whenever the world has a problem, gives you a problem or whatever, call its bluff. Just say, no, I'm not going for that. I stay with what I know to be true, kind of like that.
Bluff, yes, okay. Yeah, that's very good. Stay with what is true, right? It's very, very important to discern the illusory from the real. That discernment is very important.
I feel so much fondness for everyone here, even though we didn't get together. Just the process of communicating with friends and almost getting together.
Well, we are together right now, so
that's right. Even we're pixelated, but we're still together.
yeah, it would be lovely to come together at some time. It will take place whenever it's meant to. There may be a retreat in Costa Rica in October or November. They're still looking for a place. They haven't found a place yet, but so it's a very, very loving and very serious group of people out there.
Carbondale, Colorado has a perfect place. True Nature has built a kiva, and it's a True Nature, which is like a healing center here. And they have built a kiva, which is it's where the Native Americans would have their holiest place down below ground.
Oh.
And it's the energy is incredible, and the acoustics are wonderful. It's like, whoever's speaking, it's like to each individual person. The way the walls are curved, and it's beautiful.
Nice.
Then there's Suzanne Jacot, the artist, who's a good friend with Magdi now, and she has built this beautiful studio. It's 2,000 square feet, I think, and people could come in and book themselves to Airbnb or something. It would be a very simple retreat because we just have satsang twice a day at this location.
Where is it?
Sebastopol, California.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be a retreat center thing. It would be actually really, well, it'd be easy, and there wouldn't be any issue of paying a certain amount and having to get enough people. We would just get as many people as want to come, and they would basically take care of themselves.
Yeah.
We'd have some overhead costs, but not much.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Be a lot more relaxing.
Yeah, it would. I'd love to have us all together.
Magdi?
Yes, Anne.
I don't know much about the planets and things, but I heard someone talking about a big eclipse that's going on at the moment, the blood moon.
Oh.
Did you know?
No.
Oh. Well, I was going to ask you because they believe it's really affecting us, and I wondered if you would.
Yeah. I mean, the galactic realm affects, the body mind, because we are intimate. There is an intimacy. I mean, an absolute intimacy of what we refer to as the body mind with the cosmos. And yes, there are effects, but it doesn't contrary to some notions that there is a progression towards that there is a progression towards a higher consciousness, or that there is a new awakening era or age arriving, or anything like that. There's a lot of mind in that. The self is eternal, and the self is completely realized. Everything else is mind. Everything else is mind. Everything else is 100% mind.
Yeah, I think they were more talking about that people might feel a build-up of pressure, and it's interesting that the Mount Chester?
Mm-hmm.
That's happened within this time, because I think this eclipse goes on and for a little while longer, but it started on the 27th of July.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are such connections in there are such connections, and some people are quite knowledgeable about them and study them and so on. Yes, it's sort of the physics of the cosmos in a way. Yeah.
There was something quite significant in Christianity with the blood moon as well, but I don't really know what that is.
Yeah, there's only one thing that's significant, which is the awakening to truth. Yes.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Everything else is okay. It's nice.
Yeah. It was just a novelty, but
yes. Thank you.
I just wanted to get your views on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a little bit oblivious to the stuff.
Yeah, I am normally as well. Thank you.
But it must be very beautiful, to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Tara. It's great to get out together. Very lovely to be with you all. Thank you, and namaste, all of you. Peace.
Namaste.
Much love to you all.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Okay.